Hey guys, thank you for stopping by at Beginner's Mind with That Fig Tree. In this episode, I talked to James Turner. James Turner is founder and chief executive of Delineate. James and I talk about his entrepreneurship journey, his success, his failure, what drives him, his highs, his lows. Also, we talk about his outlook towards the research industry in future. I hope you like the content. For such meaningful conversations, please do follow our channel. All right, James, thank you for giving time. Really appreciate it. I've been watching your podcast, so you inspired me to talk to you and contact you.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
Okay, so the point which was which made me reach out to you was we're in an industry where not a lot of people take risks. People happy with their jobs. I'm not saying that there's no risk, but I think you've been one of those kind of a left your cushy job and became an entrepreneur. Why did you do that?
Great question. So, yes, I did leave a pretty great job. I was lucky enough to be working at Edelman, the world's largest PR firm, back in the early part of the 2010s. I guess that's a long journey, really, through my career of always looking to understand new things, new technologies. So from the very beginning of my career, back in the 90s, I'm quite old, working with big data back then at IRI, I think called Sakana, I think now,
Yeah.
EPOS data. I was always able to turn my hand personally to sort of new technologies and techniques and applications for getting, well, frankly, the same kind of answers to general business questions that we still answer today around products and brands and innovation, etc. And that's a journey that I took client side at BT, British Telecom in the UK, and then in several agencies after that client side experience, each time building something new. And I guess one of the reasons why I left Edelman was that we'd built something great, but I wanted to build something new again. And so it's that constant yearning or passion for developing things, which I love, that really got me to think about starting Delineate, the company that I lead today.
So, yeah, I know. Thanks. What so challenges like it's not easy, right? How did you plan your transition? Was it just one day you thought that enough and I want to do something, or what is a planned move? Normally
So
people are concerned about the salaries, this, that, and entrepreneurship is not that rosy, right?
right. So yeah, I guess one of the things I would say to anyone looking to do this is that you do need to think about the fact that you're not going to earn money on day one of being an entrepreneur, um, which had slightly escaped me. But I was lucky enough that when I made the decision to leave Edelman, I gave them a load of notice,
Okay.
which a lot of notice. I said, I'm going to help you with this last. I was running the Edelman, part of the team running the Edelman Trust Barometer, which is a very well-known piece of global research, and still runs to this day. And I gave a lot of notice and said, yeah, this time next year, I think I'll probably come to the end of this road. So that was the first step really into a sort of softer exit from one leadership role. And when I was able to make that sort of decision, I was able then to speak quite freely with people outside of the business. And I had a side hustle. I was lucky enough to have another paid job alongside starting Delineate, and that was with Black Swan Data,
Okay.
around innovation work. So that was it may have appeared to be a full-time role, but it was actually a part-time role with those guys. They're a fantastic company to work in, and gave me a great deal of experience in software engineering, or certainly from a stakeholder's perspective. I'm not a software engineer. Creating products, so the concept of product management, as well as data science and the earlier parts of some of the more modern AI techniques and natural language processing. So that was a really great experience that actually helped with Delineate as well. So I guess the insight from my perspective is you may need to have a stepping stone between a full-time
Okay.
career from one job and getting to your dream job of starting another company. So,
Okay.
or save really hard. But
Okay.
it wasn't easy to bring clients in the first few months. And I can tell you a little bit about the journey after starting, if you'd like.
Yeah, no, I'll come to that. But so did you put up did you put a product team around you, or because obviously there was a time when it was $0 revenue, and now I think it's double digits in millions. And congratulations on the success. We talked about 2 years ago about the wonderful journey that was more casual. But like, how did you put the team together, and what did you look for? Like, how did you complement yourself?
So I think one of the early insights I'd had was around forming a team that's a startup team. Businesses then move into scale-up teams and eventually into enterprise. It's a fairly established three-step, three phases of business. So in the startup phase, I knew some of this, but then learned it on the job. You need to find people that you trust that are good all-rounders, and that can include. I took folk straight from school and university and trained them, shaped them into what I needed. And that some of those individuals are still here today,
Okay.
eight years on. I've only ever worked for Delineate, which is amazing. Um, and I think what you have to think very carefully about each and every hire in that moment, unless you've got funding behind you,
Yeah.
or you can find a way to uh, give equity to someone rather than a salary. But the first few hires were quite tactical, people I knew, not necessarily from the industry, um, and some worked out, some didn't. And I think that's the old adage of fail fast, fix fast definitely comes in there. Difficult balance to be bringing people in who don't necessarily have all the skills to start with. But as a smaller team, it's fairly easy to be hands-on and to train those individuals in that startup phase. I was lucky enough to be joined by Ben Leet, who
Yeah, yeah.
had
I've talked to him. Yeah.
yeah, Ben's great. He'd left YouGov in the UK.
Yeah.
We knew each other. I was a client of his in a previous life, and
Yeah.
he had quite complementary skills. So he sort of was a
General management, right?
right, really good
Yeah,
general
very
manager,
organized character. Yeah.
really great and able
Yeah.
to hit the ground running, and compliment me in the things that I love doing. And so we became, quite a good pair in the early days of the company. And he was able to take on a lot of the more general management, client management, operational side of things to start with. And I was looking after clients and product and marketing in those early days. And together we were able to evolve the strategy and pivot in that startup phase before landing our first big client, and then we changed things up.
So, look, I think a lot of some of the questions, James, you can by now think that this stemming from my own experience also, right? I mean, my own curiosity and my own state I am in. And first thing, was it like you were bootstrapped from the day one, or like you kind of had equity funding in it, or how did you kind of expanded, scaled, phase zero, phase one? How did you approach that?
We're totally bootstrapped, so no funding at all, and still no funding to this date, actually. So privately held,
Uh,
100%. And I think the secret was to really be very careful about managing our outgoings in the early days,
okay.
and you just can't be choosy when you're in the early
Yeah.
startup phase.
Yeah.
That's a definite distinction between startup and scale up, is that
Mhm.
once you've settled on your model, your offer, you really can start to be a bit choosier, and you have learned the lesson that distracting projects that aren't quite right
Yeah.
take a lot of energy. Creating new proposals, new content, new processes, they're very distracting. But in the early days, providing it's the right domain, so in our instance, brand and comms research, In our instance, working with consumers, not businesses. In our instance, typically survey research rather than focus groups or other things. If it's broadly in that domain, then it's a yes, we want to do the work, because it brings you the working capital. And if you don't have that working capital, nothing happens.
Yeah.
Cash is indeed king in that stage. So yeah, to answer your question, bootstrapped. And I was, you see the LinkedIn memes of the highs and lows of a little chap or chapess mountaineering on a business journey. There really are highs and lows. And one of the balances that we had as a management team was, I'm slightly energetic and glass half full and optimistic that work will come.
I
We
noticed
should
that.
do things, but you do need that counterbalance of,
Yeah.
hang
Yeah.
on, maybe we shouldn't hire that person. Can we really do that now, or should we be a bit more cautious? So that
Yeah.
balance is really important as well.
Okay, I think that that's pretty cool. No, one question which I kind of sometimes think that are there when you're hiring people, are there people who are startup types or big company types, or you know, I'm sure you must have made wrong decisions, right decisions, great decision, bad decision, part of the game, right? So,
Hmm.
what's your take on that? Is there specific people, made for startups, or people can adapt, or
I think in a more senior role, there are people that are better suited to startups, um, and some people that are better suited to, I'll call it corporate life, more structure, more rigor. Um, and we certainly have had people in the business that are more comfortable in corporate life. I think one of the benefits of our business is that quite early on, we were able to bring in senior people that had worked in much bigger companies. So they behaved as though they worked in bigger companies, which served us well in the long term. So systems, processes, procedures, governance,
yeah,
quality, all those things that you get by default almost in larger companies. Whereas in startups, you tend not to have a lot of those support networks, processes around you, and that can create some discomfort.
frustration, very
So
frustration.
yeah, very, very. And so I think, having worked in very large businesses and worked in, well, on my own and then grown a small business, you learn from the other side to see the benefits, some of the things that corporate life brings you. But to answer your question, I think there are some people that really love startups, and they don't necessarily just work in startups. I think what was very interesting about working in Edelman was the freedom that you had within a big corporate to be entrepreneurial, and the same at Black Swan as well. That you were empowered and given trust to build something. So I think it's less about startups and enterprise, less about the size of the business, more about your attitude to risk that you've already mentioned, and um, I think the degree to which you trust and empower individuals to get on with it. That's a tricky balance, particularly if
Yeah,
you're an owner founder like myself that likes to be involved with the product, likes to be involved with clients, which I think our clients like, to have our leadership, not just me, but others as well in the team, really involved. And yeah, so it's more about the attitude to innovation, perhaps, and comfort about discomfort. And
yeah, yeah.
um, that's more the sort of describing characteristics of people, and that's at different levels of the company as well.
You know, last week I went to an event here. There is an entrepreneur group here, big group, influential group, and I went there to see something. And there were a couple of founders there, and when one of the founders said that his company is still bootstrapped, some of the people started clapping because people thought that without funding, everybody kind of raising a company bootstrap to this level, isn't particularly easy.
Mm.
What was, I think, two questions I have in this, and then I move to another topic. Is first is that there is a lot of pain, right? The process. I mean, there's a pain when you're doing a job. I mean, different kind of when your boss is an asshole, or whatever. Your colleague is or a system fuck, but like, what was the most painful point? Where you thought, man, it's not for me. Did I make the right move? What was that, and like, how did you tackle that?
Well, one of the biggest frustrations is that it's all consuming. So there's no time. outside of a startup. There's always something to do. Whether it's in the early days, whether it's remembering to invoice a client, paying a supplier, paying employees, all of the admin that, I mean, yes, you can outsource some of this stuff, but there's an expense, right? You're making decisions about whether you hire someone or outsource something. So in the early days, you're everything. You're the it's like we used to have this as part of our branding. You're like the director of a movie, the writer of a movie, the producer of a movie, the actor, the stunt man. You're everything. Your wardrobe, right? Your catering. You're everything. And remember, I remember not really having downtime for a
Okay.
significant period of time, making sacrifices as a family of what we're going to not do because we don't have the income that we used to have.
Yeah.
Particularly if you're a business leader that's got quite comfortable with a regular salary, quite comfortable with the possibility of a bonus, quite comfortable with the fact that you can forget about things at the weekend or in the evening. You really can't if you're running a startup, and it's particularly a global startup with clients in
Yeah.
different time zones. It's very, very difficult. And I've had this conversation with other friends of mine that have thought about startups, and I described it as relentless focus. It's a relentless focus. And it's relentless in the sense it's every time of the day, but it's also relentless in it just can get worse, sometimes better. And it does ease off. There is light at the end of that tunnel, but it's an incredibly large burden that you take on. And that takes me to the other point, which is you become responsible directly for the future of your team, your employees, those you bring on board. And I felt a great sense of responsibility, particularly for those that were earning in. They weren't taking a salary. They were, not taking a salary, which was something they had to explain to their partners, whilst they believe in this guy to
Yeah.
build something. And so there's an enormous sense of personal responsibility that comes with that, the burden of that vision, and but that takes its toll. And yeah, you really do have to take into account the sort of softer, more emotional sides of things when you're thinking about doing this. There's a lot of responsibility taken on by by corporates and by other companies, and things you just didn't know you need to do. And you become intimately familiar with tax deadlines and employer
Mm.
responsibilities, and when you just can't afford
Paperwork.
a lawyer,
A lot of
it's
paperwork.
yeah, a lot to take on. So
Yeah.
in the early days, I said that would be that was a lot to take on, and continues to be a responsibility that I bear today. Obviously with a lot more support from other very, very capable people in the firm today, but it doesn't really go away that it's that you're responsible, ultimately accountable.
Yeah, no, totally. And what was the like pivotal moment in terms of obviously it's a long journey, right? I mean, but initially, aha moment, was it winning the first client, or was it like when was like you said, man, this is we're here to stay.
Um, So I think it was the validation that large clients such as Coca-Cola and
Yeah,
others that you can see on our website
yeah,
really understood what we were trying to do. We found it very difficult to articulate at times the value we were bringing. Um, it was easier to describe the pain of not doing what we were doing, and that turned out to be the easiest way to sell was
okay,
traditional market research tracking businesses are slow. They
yeah,
lack technology, they lack um, modernity. They haven't really changed in a decade or so, yet businesses definitely have changed. The types of data they bring in daily, minute by minute, et cetera, definitely have shifted. And so we were, I guess, validated that our ideas of using technology, moving survey data into a more real-time way, had some substance to it. And the moment that those early clients said, "Do you know what? We're so frustrated with the way of working today. We're going to put this up for tender, and
okay,
you should apply." And that was a really key moment where um, people had faith in us. It was just so validating to hear that our ideas were working. And that continued. It was not easy at all to win and then start that work. And I think every founder that you talk to, whether it's Steve Phillips at Zappi, with Ryan and others as well, or other businesses within the research technology space, there's always these highs and lows and this partnership with clients that's needed. And it's both an amazing validation, but also an incredibly scary start to a new relationship that, you've got the really big corporate and the very small startup. Guess who wins in
Yeah, yeah,
negotiations?
yeah,
How
yeah.
do you navigate that? But I think having confidence in your idea, having the experience of working with big brands before in larger agencies very much helped. And yeah, always, always trying to act like a bigger business gave us that confidence. But that was a pivotal point, really. And yeah, every client we've worked with since, it's been, we were always very thankful. I think that's something that's lost by bigger businesses, is that they, particularly larger research firms, perhaps are able to rely on their equity and the sense of there's some great work. Don't get me wrong, there's some great work and particularly great people in some of our larger competitors. But there is also a sense of momentum,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you don't get fired for hiring IBM. Still, kind of gets quoted a lot, and it's very difficult to balance sort of off the shelf, tried and tested with being innovative. If everyone's got the same thing, where's your innovation advantage? So that's always been a very um, interesting kind of perspective for us.
Yeah, awesome. I think, look, entrepreneurship journey obviously great, and again, James, very well done on that. I mean, who am I to evaluate? But a great job there. But let me just, I think it'll be waste if I don't ask you questions on your view on industry, because I think you're a disruptor yourself, right? Where do you think the industry is going? I think I teach here in a university as well, in the NUS Business School. And, I do talk about, how students can come and win in this and can get employment in this industry. But what's your broader view of directions of the industry with the AI space and all that? What are you, where are you with that?
Big questions. Well, look, firstly, some of these questions were addressed this week at the Association for Survey Computing
Okay.
conference, which is at the global conference on Tuesday and Wednesday this week. Sorry, Wednesday, Thursday this week.
Hmm.
The technologies, research, AI was an enormous part of what we discussed. There's no industry that it's not touched by
Yeah,
generative AI, large language
true.
models, all the true AI.
Yeah.
Um, it's really, in my view, it's an accelerant of things that are already happening in the industry. So commoditization of data, uh, reduction in the number of individuals in the processes of research, research becoming part of a mix of other data, um, and clients continuing to in-source and self-serve and be more self-sufficient. And this is all coming from, CIO strategies around retaining and having one truth of data, creating more value from data. COVID caused a massive discontinuity in the research industry.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Ad hoc, uh, in many cases stopped. Continuous also stopped, where businesses were really, really nervous about expenditure, or where research is correlated to marketing spend, marketing stopped. So big issues and big change in the industry. So I think there's been a bit of a reset. I think both on budgets and in how brands buy research. There's an expectation, I think, since ChatGPT became mainstream,
Yeah.
that the way we access data is changing. People understand prompts. We have a generation of people that access the world through search. We've we've
Hmm.
already we've already grown a generation of prompt engineers. That's the next generation. Ironically, looks a little bit like DOS prompts from many years ago, for those that remember it.
Yeah.
But whether these transformers, these GPTs will have a front end or an application. Of course, that will happen in time. But right now, we've got this very new way of accessing data. And I think, interestingly, for me, a trend around good enough, like the traffic light system, like
Okay.
red, stop, it's broken, yellow or amber, depending where you live. It needs some work, and green, it's good to go. We see this in ad testing and concept testing. We see it in many areas of decision science within business, that you form a set of thresholds or tolerances around things, and moving at pace, moving with decision and precision is what matters. And some of the more traditional market research techniques just take time. Running
Yeah.
a big U&A, running a segmentation analysis. These research companies are not set up to do these things quickly. And so what will not change is brands want things faster, they want them cheaper, and they want to do things in a more automated way. And so that's a trend that I see as quite impactful. It's a trend I see at Delineate we're well placed to address, because we whilst we still collect, I guess, what you could call traditional survey research, I would call it first party data in
Mm-hmm.
the new nomenclature of things. So good, strong signals, useful for models, from real people. Training data is how we would view market research tracking data in some ways. We're set up for that. Data in a data lake, not in market research formats, disconnected. The data lake data can be connected to a variety of modern tools, whether they be BI tools or data science applications or indeed models. Being in that modern data format is critical. Allowing brands to connect and ingest data themselves through ETL processes is critical as well. All of these things are what inoculate research companies against the trends of self-serve and analytics and AI and synthetic data and things that could challenge us as an industry. And being confident about why we're different. Why is first-party research data collected through many mechanisms, but surveys is predominantly for us? Why does it have power? Why is it different?
Yeah.
And there's a strong case. There's a strong case for why self-completion survey data has a really, really important, if not more important, role in a world where some data is free. Answers are certainly free, whether they're right or wrong, from various tools. So being Jane Frost at the MRS recently used the phrase market scientist, which I quite liked. Maybe it would take off as well as much as data scientist did, but being I'll say market scientist for now, is a profession and a discipline that we need to be proud of and need to continue to show the value of that's there. I think our industry has maybe not always engaged with the fast-paced outside world that's moving with enormous investment and speed today, and we have to simply get on that train as well. So that's my kind of top level view of things going on in the research world.
No, no, I think it's amazing. But I think several questions stem from this. And one of the questions in my mind is, like, I was looking at the ESOMAR report, I think 2022, 2023, and globally I think the industry is about $100 billion worth. Uh, you know, Now, is it going to grow, or what the shape going to be? I mean, what are we seeing in terms of the client budgets and all that? Is it going to grow, let's say 8%, 10%, 5%? Where is it? What do you see? I mean, I know nobody knows the future, but you're sitting on a business, you're continuously monitoring your sheets, and I know you're part of so much industry group. So just wanted to pick your brains
Mm.
on that.
Well, I think there's a definitional issue here. So
Okay.
all of the industry bodies within market research, whether it's SMR, MRS, sorry, Insights Association, all the very wonderful organizations that exist, tend to have a bottom-up view through
Yeah.
method.
Okay.
And all the grit report, which is excellent, from Green Book, will be asking about modes of research. So face-to-face, online, telephone, surveys versus focus groups versus data science versus analytics, right? Very, very much a bottom-up view. And for good reason. It's a continuous tracker and you need to be consistent. The reality of people buying insight solutions more broadly which all of these industry bodies try to be a part of, is that it's a much, much bigger industry that is in growth. When you look at the investments being made in MarTech, as well as research technology, data sources, data connectivity, analytics, and prediction science, when you look at all of those investments that the combination of a CMO, a CTO, and a CIO would have in a global business, when you take that into account, they're enormously large and much bigger than what we might consider in the insights industry traditionally.
Okay.
And much of that is in growth, not all.
Okay.
So it's the trend of connecting data, automating decisions, trying to model the outside world, trying to maintain cost or keep costs down, going from ad hoc to always on, speeding things up, being data driven in everything that you do. Those are the trends that are driving growth, in my opinion, and
Okay.
we'll always try and take account of new innovation. So, is our world growing? Probably. There's big inflation around the world, and many brands are in growth. Are some of the methods that we have always done in growth? No, no, they're not. But they all have. I think we've kind of reached a bit of a lower plateau for some of those. There's still a great deal of great quality qualitative research going on, perhaps used in different ways, maybe earlier in the process, as digital tools come online. I'm interested to see how digital personas trained around different consumer groups will be used by businesses to test ideas out. That's the work that Yabble are doing. Catherine at Yabble, who was on my
Yeah.
podcast, does some really interesting work there. And I think there's, in a way, whilst the primary research may drop or become more focused, it could be better quality. I
Okay.
think actually a lot of the very mundane work that was done, sort of, I'll do the focus groups kind of work. Very, I've seen in my time some very poor briefs from clients and some very lackluster qualitative research being done because we've always done it that way. That's
Yeah.
the process. And I think that we're finally through automation, the threat of us being replaced, maybe responding to that as a business and changing what we do. And there's no part of our industry untouched by technology. Very, 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 very limited
No,
parts that aren't by that.
James, you're very much into technology, right? And now I think if I take the clock 10 years backwards, there was a lot of FMCG companies work, right? Then came the Googles of the world they started with zero spends, and then a lot of now if you see the Google is a big client for a lot of people, I mean, including us. I'm just giving an example of shift or redistribution from FMCGs to technology. How about these new age players? They're with the entrepreneurship and technology, the smaller companies can become big, right? Uh, Take an example of Uber, and I think you're probably working with Uber also. I don't know that, but I'm just guessing. But these new age clients, how can we help them? I mean, I'm talking from the perspective of, let's say, a $20 million sales kind of company or $30 million sales kind of company. They need our help in decision making also, right? But they don't have budgets, they don't have right people. So what do we do for them?
So, great question. So for any of those early stage businesses, I think there's a big opportunity to work with them in the new ways. So most of these modern businesses are going to be, to an extent, virtual and global, connected, using data in new ways. And that creates a culture of using data and to make decisions. So I see those as an opportunity for my business because they
Okay.
want connected. They want strong signals, as I'll call it, to help them make decisions. So that's a relatively, I wouldn't say easy sell. It's an easier sell around connecting and having always on data because it makes sense. So if you're a business that's an app, you've got always on signals from your users today. You've got a first or even zero party relationship with those consumers, and a lot of data already. What you probably lack in those businesses is competitor information. So where's our industry strong? We're strong at market representation, the market scientist that Jane talks
Yeah.
about, which I do love. We're we're able to get the answers to questions you can't see through behavior, to attitudes and values that people might disclose in a survey independently, but not inside an app. And we're able to test hypotheses and what if scenarios through research as well. So by better understanding how we complement the rich data sets they may feel they own themselves, I think that's the way to win. You won't be able to rock up and say, hey, I can do 4 focus groups in India and China and in Brazil. That's not their language. You would be able to rock up and say, I can give you an always on stream of net promoter score or brand awareness into your systems that you can put alongside the other data that you have to understand whether your business is going to grow or shrink in the coming months because of things like competitor advertising awareness, or I've seen read or heard something negative about this brand in the news as a strong lead indicator of future sales. And those are the kind of metrics they can't get themselves. So it's sort of having to understand a bit more about how these businesses operate and how they use data. There's no businesses that won't use data that are growing like that, right? They're all
Sure.
going to be digital first. They're all going to have
Or AI
first part.
first now. I mean, digital first is being replaced by AI first now. All these terms. Uh, James, I think it will be shame if I don't ask questions about your company. I think I don't ask too many questions, but one question is, what do you wake up every morning with thinking, I know you're a very passionate person. I've talked to you several times, not just once. What do you wake up with? What do you want to do with Delineate, and where do you want it to, what makes you happy, and where do you want to take it?
I guess my vision is for Delineate to be the go-to insights partner for real-time brand media and comms. And
Okay.
we're doing that today through the tracking work that we do. So we are real-time daily tracking for some of the world's largest brands in brand
Yeah.
equity, category entry, and campaign work. And we're doing more and more I wouldn't say ad hoc, but pilot work or short-term work where brands are yet to see the value of some of the real-time work as they haven't budgeted for it, but when they
Hmm.
try it, they love it. So I wake up really trying to make sure that we stay on track to be that go-to partner. And that's a mixture of people, technology, ideas, engagement, and excitement. And some of our recent new joiners to the team come from enterprise product backgrounds. So that's really exciting to me that we are going from that startup business with great tech, but a little more manual, a little more customized, to scale up an enterprise where we have products and then we have multiple clients using the same tech. And that's just fantastic to see. So yeah, my vision is as I said, to be the go-to partner for understanding media brand and comms in real time.
And but if I remember correctly, you kind of very concerned about the community as well, aren't you? The whales and uh,
Yeah, so I guess quite unusual thing about Delineate is that we are globally headquartered outside of a major city.
yeah,
So I have a family connection to Wales, where I'm talking to you from today, beautiful West Wales. And a lot of our operations are based here. So our global operations and innovation center is here in the Teivi Valley. And we were lucky enough to open offices earlier this year for our engineering, operations, data science, production, and some of our marketing and BD folk as well, headquartered here. So yeah, it's fantastic. That's our hub, and we have spoke offices aligned with our clients. So our client insights and customer success teams are in London, Mexico City, and the United States. And we've met further east, haven't we, before? So
yeah,
I'm often in Singapore
yeah,
as
yeah, I
well.
know that. No, I remember when you quoted me uh, some data that a dollar spent in the local community kind of rolls down to, and I think you're very passionate about
That's right.
supporting the community in Wales.
That's right. So actually, it's an insight from the work we did at Edelman in a lot of work around trust and how businesses thrive. And I think it's incredibly important that businesses have a social purpose. So that's kind of the thing that we would work on back at Edelman. And so I've always been mindful of the impact we leave. And so choosing Wales was easy because there are great people. There are people that return home to this wonderful part of the world without so much opportunity for work. There's some great businesses in the area. It's a strong area for agriculture and tourism, of course, but there's a lot of opportunity for other businesses to come here. And so that was part of the decision for West Wales was this opportunity with talent. And from a personal perspective, having been entrepreneurial, I'd love to support others in
Yeah,
their own journeys.
yeah,
So be able to hire locally, hire early from school, from those returning from university. And there's some great universities in the area here as well. So some people have come to Wales to study, Aberystwyth and Trinity St David's and Swansea and Cardiff, great universities. Those individuals make a life here, and it's great that we can help them stay and grow. And yeah, the number that you mentioned is there's some statistics around how a significant proportion of the take-home salary of somebody in an area goes into that local community. I think cafes and after-school clubs
yeah,
and
yeah,
buying things, and which in turn generates economy. And so that's what we're trying to do here with the site we're on in Llandesil, is encourage other businesses to join us. So we have a space here within our offices that can be used by other people. We have a well-connected conference area and meeting rooms that we
oh,
encourage other businesses to use as well. So if you're watching and would like to do that, info@delineate.ai.
yeah,
And I think it's a very mature, responsible part of growing a business, perhaps more in the scale up than in startup. It doesn't cost money, doesn't cost to be thoughtful about those things. So, yeah, we are trying to encourage as much of many of the roles as that make sense to have here in
yeah,
Wales, and we received a really warm welcome, and which we're very grateful for, and the support of local government and other bodies. So our local council,
yeah.
Ceredigion,
No, that's
Business
amazing.
Wales, and others.
So just two more questions, James, before I let you go. You're a busy man. Uh, Young entrepreneurs or any entrepreneurs in market research industry, what's your advice to them? They want to start a business and they come and James, James, you've been there, done that. What's your advice to me? What would you what would you suggest? Let's say in terms of type of business they should go into, and then starting from that.
Big question. It's always going to start with what do clients want. So
Okay.
identify some of the pain points that businesses have with the insights industry. Everything is going to have some element of AI in it in
Okay.
future. Being really clear about um, your point of differentiation. So for Delineate, that's about speed. We're just simply faster everywhere. That's really important. It's a very fast-paced world, so be prepared to pivot. The idea you have at the beginning won't be the idea that's at the end of your startup phase. Everything you read, well, most of the things you read about startups, pivoting, reinventing yourself, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. So I think the advice I would give is find a niche
Okay.
that clients have a pain with today. Know that you're going to need to be fluent in not necessarily how to write an AI or be a software engineer, but how do you use AI to speed up, improve, or reduce costs on the business idea that you have? How do you connect what you do to businesses? How do you find something that's going to scale? That's
Okay.
the advice I would give. And there's plenty of businesses in the research industry moving slowly, frustrating clients, and losing out. So whilst I wish nobody that misfortune, there is opportunity in the industry. And whilst we may not grow as fast as analytics, data, and insights overall, there is growth and there's
That's
opportunity.
great. Yeah.
Um, that's my advice.
Any books you have suggestions on? I'm not sure whether I don't know. We met before, but we didn't talk about books. Like, but any book
Mm.
you read or
Well, I have to confess, I'm not an avid book reader. I've
okay,
listened to audiobooks more and more. That's just the
okay,
way my brain works. Yeah, I'm not. I like to consume information faster than books allow me sometimes. So, but what I did get this week at the ASC conference was a book called "Causal, Not Casual,"
okay,
which is a really interesting take on some new analytics techniques that are supercharging some of the data that we get from market research in
okay,
helping businesses understand real drivers of change in their business. So I'm only a little way into that. I got it on Wednesday. But I think any business book that helps you understand consumer behaviors and drivers of change um, should be something to consider. I'm all for curated content, whether it's
okay,
Spotify serving me up some nice tunes to listen to, or audiobook recommendations within marketing. Um, I'd recommend those. And I think putting yourself in your customer's shoes is an
that's
important
yeah,
insight. So if you're selling to marketers, what are they reading? That's
okay.
what I that's what I would
That's
look
good.
to. But yeah,
Any particular entrepreneur, James, you look up to, or you kind of trial and error with yourself, or somebody fascinates you? Like I'm really so much into Elon Musk and Jensen Huang of Nvidia. Like what are you?
so I think there's a lot of interesting characteristics. Some of the well-known entrepreneurs, uh, like the gent you just mentioned there. For me, the entrepreneurs we should respect are those that are that sort of continue to innovate,
Okay,
that know when to let go of their businesses and hand them over. Um, Within the research industry, I think the people that I've been most inspired by. So we have Steve King at Black Swan is a
okay,
great guy. Hugo Amos were great. I was very inspired when I met them at Black Swan. They're still going today, which is great, working with more and more new clients. I really like the work that they were doing as entrepreneurs. Of course, Steve at Zappi, fantastic as well. Um, there's not that many in the industry
yeah, yeah,
that I would really point to, which I guess is an insight in its own right. And for anyone listening to this, looking to be an entrepreneur, there's plenty of space to get out there and have a voice. Um, so yeah, I'd say those are the ones that I've met and experienced in my time in Insights. There are some people from yesteryear that were quite inspirational to me. I worked at IRI and met Gian Forgoni, who built I believe built IRI and ComScore back in the day. I've met Liz Nelson and some of the people that formed TNS back in the
okay.
day. They're all incredibly smart, really impactful individuals that have really shaped our industry. And I think we're at a point now where, hopefully I'm part of a small group of people that are instilling change in the industry. And I think we're ripe for some more entrepreneurs to join and take us to the next level as we ride the AI wave.
Yeah, truly, no, thank you so much. I'm totally inspired by you, James, and your journey, and obviously
Thank
now you
you.
started the podcast as well, and the way you are passionate about changing and reinventing the technologies. I think that's something. So, it's definitely one of the entrepreneurs to look up to and learn from. And on that note, thank you, James. I'll leave you and I'll reconnect with you on some other matters. Thank
Great.
you.
Best. Thanks,
Take care.
Rajiv.
Bye.
Bye bye.